The commentary criticizes what is portrayed as conflicting messages from the USA administration during an ongoing conflicting arguing that President Donald Trump's decision to call a television network and suggest the Iran war was pretty much complete created confusion by contrasting sharply with statements from defense officials who described the campaign as only beginning.
According to this analysis, the president's remarks appeared timed to calm financial markets. As stock indexes recovered and oil prices fell shortly after his comments, suggesting that economic messaging was prioritized alongside military communication. The piece highlights what it views as two parallel realities, one in which military leadership warned of continued operations and unresolved objectives, and another in which political messaging signaled near victory. It also raises concern over a reported phone call between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, arguing that involving a geopolitical rival in discussions about ending the conflict introduced strategic complications, particularly given Russia's economic gains from rising energy prices during the crisis. The narrative traces the timeline from the launch of U.S. military operations aimed at dismantling Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities to developments on the ground that did not produce immediate regime collapse, including leadership changes within Iran that strengthened hardline elements rather than moderates. By presenting examples of market reactions, diplomatic contacts, and differing official statements, the analysis concludes that the situation reflects internal contradictions within policy messaging, questioning whether the administration's approach represents coordinated strategy or reactive decision-making amid rapidly shifting geopolitical and economic pressures. The analysis argues that deep contradictions within official U.S. messaging have created a dangerous perception of disorganization during the conflict, highlighting how the president's claim that the war was nearly finished directly conflicted with statements from defense leadership and Pentagon communications asserting that operations were only beginning. According to this perspective, such inconsistencies signal not merely a communication failure, but an administration lacking a unified long-term strategy, publicly sending mixed signals while adversaries and allies closely watch for signs of weakness. The commentary contrasts US messaging with Iran's response, noting that Iranian officials rejected diplomacy and projected confidence, framing the conflict as an existential struggle while promising continued resistance. It also criticizes the president's rhetoric and public appearances during the crisis, arguing that political messaging and personal performances risk undermining credibility, which the author describes as a crucial asset in wartime diplomacy. The piece further connects the conflict to everyday economic consequences, explaining how volatile oil prices affect fuel, food, and manufacturing costs worldwide, while pointing to reported military losses and emerging concerns among allies, such as Israel, as evidence that the campaign may be more complex than portrayed publicly. It outlines two possible outcomes: a managed escalation in which victory is declared despite unresolved strategic issues, potentially leaving Iran politically stronger, or an escalation scenario where regional proxy conflicts intensify, global energy markets destabilize, and the crisis expands into a broader war without a clear exit strategy. Overall, the commentary presents the situation as a pivotal geopolitical moment, shaped as much by credibility, coordination, and messaging as by military actions on the ground. The analysis presents a third and more concerning potential outcome of the conflict, described as a geopolitical realignment in which the United States, struggling to secure a clear exit strategy, increasingly relies on Russia and President Vladimir Putin to broker a resolution, thereby shifting global influence away from Washington and toward Moscow. According to this perspective, Russia, having already benefited economically from rising oil prices and relaxed sanctions during the crisis, could leverage its position as mediator to extract concessions related not only to the Iran conflict, but also to broader issues such as Ukraine, sanctions policy, and European security arrangements. In this scenario, the war would not conclude because of decisive American victory, but because Russia determines the timing in terms of de-escalation, strengthening its diplomatic authority without direct military involvement. The commentary argues that a widening gap has emerged between declared objectives and actual outcomes, noting that promises of regime change instead produced harder-line leadership. Claims of eliminating nuclear threats remain disputed, and public messaging from U.S. leadership appeared inconsistent when Pentagon statements contradicted presidential remarks within days. This perceived inconsistency, the analysis claims, risks damaging international confidence in American strategic communication. suggesting that allies and adversaries alike may conclude that U.S. war aims are fluid and influenced by political or economic pressures rather than a stable, long-term strategy. The piece frames the situation as a broader credibility crisis, questioning whether events reflect deliberate managed chaos or simply a lack of coherent planning, and warns that the lessons drawn from the conflict will shape how governments, militaries, and intelligence agencies respond to future crises involving the United States. It concludes by emphasizing that the geopolitical consequences extend far beyond the battlefield, affecting global energy markets, diplomatic alliances, and perceptions of leadership reliability, while encouraging audiences to closely follow upcoming developments such as tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, negotiations involving sanctions, and Russia, and evolving regional calculations by key allies, presenting the unfolding situation as a fast-moving and uncertain chapter in global politics whose long-term implications are still emerging.